movie you selected is Gemini Man, starring Will Smith.
Hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Because let's face it, this is like conspiracy theory fodder.
Do you think Blockbuster's Gemini twin was Hollywood Video?
It's Netflix. They're secretly. That's why Netflix is making poor choices.
Damn, you're right.
What's up, everybody? I'm Bria, and they out here cloning people, y'all.
I'm Simone, and this movie got me singing, "It's like in a mirror. Oh, why they all staring back at me? Oh."
And if you don't know, in today's episode, we're talking about Will Smith in the sci-fi action movie Gemini Man. So let's take a trip back to October 2019.
So I'm going to start in September, and I'm going to start off with some familiarity, comfort of what we already know, which was in September of 2019, Jennifer Lopez reprises the Versace green dress. Wearing it again at a fashion show in 2019, the star made a surprise appearance in the spring 2020 Versace show in September, strutting down the runway appearance in an updated version of the iconic dress.
Which I would like to ask you if you think that she's worn that dress or think adjacent to the dress too much.
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do. Obviously it's an iconic dress, and that was such a big moment of 2000 because that was the advent of Google image searching, right? So obviously that has like a big part of pop culture history, but I think that she's like not relied on it too much, but I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to revise an old look and updating it. But I don't want that to be her her fashion game is so strong, and I think that there's other great outfits that she's worn throughout the years that maybe are not equal, but are still iconic in their own.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it when she does it, but I think if she does it again, that'll be
it's too much. Because she also did it when she hosted SNL, when she came out in the robe. And then she took the robe off during her monologue.
I think she did it both times.
Yeah.
And then she had the suit for I Love You, Poppy, which I liked. I thought that was a good. But yeah. And then she has robes that are this fabric.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine because it's but I always see that. I'm tired of staring, but not fans of her. So anyways.
Also in September of 2019, Justin Bieber and Hailey Baldwin, now Hailey Bieber, officially say "I do" again. They discreetly tied the knot in a private courthouse ceremony in 2018, and then they had an official ceremony.
You know what's crazy? I just looked at their wedding pictures for some.
Oh, interesting.
Something in me was just what did I don't remember their wedding pictures being. Oh, so I was curious. They looked great.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they're an attractive couple, but I just know that they've been back in the news recently with their ongoing health issues.
Best of luck to the Biebers.
Best of luck to the Biebers. Additionally, in September, the world was introduced to Lizzo. 2019, her first #1 hit of Truth Hurts comes out. In September, there was also the Storm Area 51 event. That big
That's
viral joke.
People were.
Then in October, Jennifer Aniston joins Instagram and sets a world record of her selfie with the Friends cast, and it was the fastest time to reach 1 million followers in just about 5 hours and 16 minutes.
That is impressive.
Yeah, that's hella fast. I'm sure you have to have notifications turned off on your phone for something like that you would just be constantly getting hit with blasts of stuff.
I feel like celebrities either most of them have multiple phones, and then a lot of them have someone run their social media. So I feel
for sure.
that's like it on another phone or device where it's just like not, again, it might be off, but it's also like not their problem, you know?
Yeah. Also in October, The Joker gets the last laugh. This was, I think, between like probably Gemini Man's biggest box office competitor. So if you thought Avengers Endgame was a huge hit, the box office sensation that became the new standalone Joker movie was a record that no comic movie buff ever saw coming. It was the first R-rated movie to pass 1 billion at the global box office. Then in November, Tesla debuts the new quote-unquote shatterproof Cybertruck, but it actually ended up shattering the bulletproof windows like while they were presenting it on stage. So you can see this like awkward picture of Elon Musk just like
And nothing has come of the Cybertruck.
no.
So like
It's so bad. Yeah, ding dong. Then in November, there was the revival of Charlie's Angels, which stars Kristen Stewart, Naomi Scott from last week's Aladdin movie, and Ella Balinska.
That's her? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
because she's not wearing that terrible wig.
It doesn't even really look like her poster. But did you see this?
I didn't, but I'm interested in it. I loved the like 2000s Charlie's Angels with Lucy Liu and Drew and Cameron. And of course, the like Destiny's Child song that lives rent free in my body all the time.
Yeah, that, I don't know. Like, I had my old lady pants on for this one where I was like, why do they need to touch Charlie's Angels? What's wrong with the 2000s version? And granted, yes, it's like 20 years old. I just think, like, even you talking about that, like, no offense to these ladies, Kristen Stewart and Naomi Scott are, like, the only big names in this.
And Elizabeth Banks, she played Bosley, I think. That was, like, the feminist twist, was that it was, like,
I got them confused. But yeah. So Naomi Scott is the young African-American lady.
No. If you look at the poster, Naomi Scott is on the left of Kristen Stewart.
Oh, shit, she's Jasmine.
Yeah, that's Jasmine from Aladdin.
Shows how much I paid attention last week. Okay. Well, Kristen Stewart and Elizabeth Banks and X-Men Man, Sir Patrick, are the only two recognizable people to me. And I at least feel like with the first reboot that those were pretty big names. And then again, like the amazing song, like, so I feel like they didn't do this group of girls justice. Maybe I'm not going to blame them or their Hollywood staff, but it should have been a big deal.
Yeah. I don't think it got the respect it deserved. I'll close it out with Frozen 2 returns to theaters. It was the highest grossing worldwide opening of an animated film, ranking more than 1 billion worldwide. And then I lied. The last thing that I will say is that December was the end of the Star Wars saga where they had the last of the Skywalkers premiere.
Do you think Frozen deserves that record?
Deserves is an interesting word to use for it. I mean, it's no secret that Frozen, the first one, which aired in like 2014, I think, at the end of 2014, was like the new generation of like renaissance for Disney films. I think that Disney animation was kind of in like a bit of a slump. And then Frozen was like the first princess musical movie to come around, at least for me, maybe since like Princess and the Frog and Tangled, that just really fucking gripped everybody by the throat. And we were all kind of like, whether we like it or not, along for the Frozen ride. For me personally, I feel like I've been hit over the head with it way too many times. And that like visiting Disney parks, they would find these little ways of to include Let It Go in like everything that they did, whether it would be from the...
They had a whole store in downtown Disney for
whole store.
I mean,
yeah.
If the little girls love it, absolutely give them their things. But a whole store?
A whole store.
Knock off a corner for World of Disney? Like, come on.
Well, and I remember when I saw Coco in the theaters, the Disney Pixar movie Coco, the like short for that was a Pixar short. That was 30 minutes long of Anna and Elsa and Olaf like decorating Arendelle for the holidays. And I looked over at Leah, her and I saw it in the theater, and I was like, we just watched a mini movie, and now we're expected to watch a second movie? Like, my attention span's already gone. Like, that movie...
I don't remember that.
Because
I saw Coco in theaters.
It was 30 minutes and 4 songs and a reprise in just the little short. So again, it's kind of too much for me. Now, I saw Frozen 2 in the theater, again, with Leah, because we saw the first one together, and it's okay.
I saw the first one with our old former acquaintance, and Evan and Jeff, by Much Ado, her shepherding.
Of course.
I was like, I don't need to see this movie.
Yeah.
But, yes. That is all to say that, I don't know. Like, I think sometimes numbers are, like, great, but then sometimes it's, like, it doesn't also reflect, like, how good a movie is either. Like, just because it's, like, this huge grossing movie doesn't mean... Like, Wild Wild West made a lot of money, too. Like, so, just me humbling Frozen a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you. So hit us with some other pop culture news. What else is going on in 2019? I don't
have any. I mean, I feel like I talked about a lot last week, and then I also feel like we're very current. So if you don't know, like, what was going on, like, in Black culture, then get some culture. Like, but I mean, big albums like Meg Thee Stallion, The Baby, off the top of my head, you know, hip hop is skewing a lot younger. Rappers like Juice WRLD and stuff. But yeah, no, that's all I have.
All right. Well, some of the other movies that were released that competed against Gemini Man in October of 2019, we have the adaptation movie of Harriet, starring Cynthia Erivo. There's also Terminator Dark Fate, the Academy Award-winning movie Parasite, The King. There's also The Lighthouse, which stars Robert Pattinson and...
Willem Dafoe.
Thank you, Willem Dafoe. Good job, good recall. That was all shot in black and white. There's also a Maleficent movie that was released that month, and the remake of The Addams Family, but that was the cartoonized version of The Addams Family, and The Joker, of course, because I talked about that in the pop culture news. So I'm curious, because watching Gemini Man, there were lots of explosions, there were lots of stunts. I'm very curious the cost of what it took to make this movie and how much it made.
Well, that and the CGI technology.
Yes, indeed.
Sure was a pretty penny. The budget for Gemini Man is $138 million estimated.
Okay.
So lots of money. The opening weekend in US and Canada, it made $20.5 million. Then the gross is $48.5 in US and Canada, and gross worldwide is $173.4.
Okay, so not that much of a profit.
No. And I mean, I feel like I remember hearing about this and like hearing not so great things about it, but it surprised me. Like, per usual, I feel like it's not that bad. But, yeah, so not a huge hit as some other movies, like Aladdin. Unfortunately, this follows that. So, but we'll be okay. I mean, I think that's too, for a lot of actors at this point, you know, that's the name of the game. You might have like one huge Disney type of movie, Marvel, or, you know, whatever, DC, and then like you do like something you really want to do, and it's not as big of a hit. So you're like, hey, that Disney check already cleared. Like, I mean, this check cleared too. So, heading over to Roger Ebert, House of La Rage. Simone, what do you think, Gemini Man?
I mean, I like to say it depends on the writer, because there were, like, the person that did the review for After Earth ended up kind of liking it, even though historically After Earth performed badly and people had a lot of bad things to say about it. And I remember the negative reviews in this movie as well. Just again, hearing like, I didn't see it in the theaters, but just hearing like, oh, Gemini Man, like not a good movie kind of thing. So I'm guessing House of Little Raj gave Gemini Man 2 stars.
2?
Yes.
You are correct.
Ayo.
So this review is written by Odie Henderson. He also writes a review for Bad Boys for Life. And I can't see... I'm trying to see if I've read any of his other ones. He has a lot.
The name doesn't sound familiar.
It doesn't, but he does have lots of black films in here. I'm wondering if he's African. I see like Aretha and like...
He doesn't have a picture?
Do they have pictures?
Sometimes at the bottom of the review.
Oh, he is black.
Okay.
Oh my God, and he goes by the Odinator. So... yeah, because like the first latest movie is the Emmett Till movie and all kinds of like the Beast movie with Idris and Nope. So good for RogerEbert.com for getting a African American writer to write about black films.
Yeah.
So Odie starts off his review. 2019 is becoming the year of the CGI-faced actor. After computer-based de-aging technology took decades off the cast of The Irishman, Gemini Man has employed the same technique to turn Collateral Beauty Will Smith into 6 Degrees of Separation Will Smith, which I noted. And
me too.
It looks like you noted too. Granted, the FX folks had to pull fewer decades off the Fresh Prince, so the effect looks a bit better. Plus, they gave his younger stand-in much sharper cheekbones than he had in 1993. An enhancement that wasn't necessary, but was probably welcome. Director Ang Lee's sci-fi actioner uses even more CGI to pit young Will against old Will in a convoluted plot about assassins, corrupt intelligence agencies, and the old standby that's currently getting beaten to death by Ad Astra, daddy issues. I've never seen Ad Astra, so hey. He goes on, quite honestly, I didn't know what to think of Gemini Man. I like his voice in this. Feels very on. Anyways, I didn't know what to think of Gemini Man once the credits started rolling. I neither hated it nor liked it. Well, I hated one aspect of it, which I should get out of the way right now because it will probably not affect most ticket buyers. Paramount presented the critics screening in the format Ang Lee made it, 120 frames per second and in 3D. Lee's prior film, Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, also used this frame rate. As a point of reference using a more familiar movie, the Hobbit series ran at 48 frames per second. At 5 times the original rate of film running through the projector, damn, that's fast.
The math is hurting my brain.
I know, but 5 times faster.
Yeah, okay.
Gemini Man looks radically different than most movies. It also looks astonishingly bad. Tom Cruise, Paramount's current bread and butter, made a video scolding mere mortals like a southern grandmother for using the motion smoothing setting on their television. Yet, 120 frames per second looks exactly like motion smoothing. In fact, it looks worse, like a hellish cross between a video game and a telenovela. It's so obnoxious that I know of 2 critics who walked out after 30 minutes. Wow.
Of Gemini Man?
Yes.
Damn.
Story-wise, Smith plays Henry Brogan, a highly skilled assassin working for an intelligence agency run by Janet Lassiter. Brogan is so good he can hit a target on a moving train from hundreds of feet away. A target on a train whose track curves wildly toward the scene as it flies by at unimaginable speed. Brogan's mark takes it in the neck rather than the intended headshot, and though it's still a lethal wound, Brogan sees this as the final nail in the coffin of his career. He retires, returning to a boat dock where his normal boat renting guy has been replaced by Danny sorry if I butcher this, Zakaresky, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. As spies are wont to do, Brogan expresses suspicion about this change. Is she a plant sent to keep tabs on him? Perhaps an employee of Lassiter's frenemy colleague Clay Verris, played by Clive Owen? Of course, nothing is as it seems in movies like this. After colleagues start being murdered and Brogan learns that his last target was merely a scientist and not a terrorist, he goes on the run with Danny, who, as expected, is also an agent. When Lassiter's attempts to neutralize Brogan fail miserably, Clay overrides her and executes something called Gemini. You don't have to be an astrologer to know that Gemini involves the aforementioned younger version of Smith, dubbed Junior. Lee does an excellent job with Junior's reveal and the ensuing motorcycle battle, the most exciting sequence in the film. The first-person perspective really works here, as does the clever way the Smiths use their vehicles as like Jaden's not in this movie.
Meaning like the two Smiths.
Yeah.
The two Wills.
Yeah. Someone said they should name this Mr. and Mr. Smith. That would have been funny. But Lee even throws in an homage to John Woo, who would have been a better choice for this material. Oh, really? Though he uses pigeons instead of doves. Gemini Man knows you're there to see a battle of wills, so it gives us multiple sequences where 51-year-old Brogan goes toe-to-toe with his younger self. The elder Brogan has the advantage. The wisdom of age and experience prevents him from making the same youthful mistakes he once made, mistakes Junior is making for the first time. Unfortunately, the second battle takes place in a dark catacomb where the effects are so quickly edited that you can figure out which version is beating the hell out of the other. It also takes forever for Brogan to realize that Junior looks exactly like him. Maybe it's the new cheekbones. The screenplay by Billy Ray, Darren Lemke, and Game of Thrones' David Benioff is more in service to the numerous technological aspects Lee is juggling than any human element. It uses Brogan's intentionally closed-off emotionless personality as a crutch to avoid any meaningful fleshing out of characters and relationships. The always welcome Benedict Wong shows up to supply his usual humorous line readings and jovial nature. He's a fine purveyor of the perfect best friend trope, and Winstead gets to kick some major ass instead of being a stereotypical Girl Friday. But neither truly registers as fully realized human being. The relationship between Junior and Clay, which I won't reveal, serves as an attempt at emotional connection, but their entire plotline plays like a Hitler-less version of Ira Levin's The Boys from Brazil. The reasoning behind Junior in the Gemini Project is far more troubled than its worth. All right, last paragraph. Gemini Man never pretends to be anything but a time-wasting contraption hoping to entertain its viewer. I can't reasonably be mad at its honesty, and despite the horrendous dialogue its actors are often forced to speak, I found myself enjoying a fair amount of it. But Ang Lee is the rare director who can invest in action movie with the same strong emotional heft he brought to his dramas like Brokeback Mountain and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like Brokeback Mountain. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a great example of this. His recent desire to be at the forefront of frame-based technology, however, is resulting in hollow, empty experiences that are literally hard to watch. Perhaps the Gemini Project could be used to send the Ang Lee who made The Wedding Banquet to visit the Ang Lee who made this. Break his high rate frame camera, Junior. Wow, that's a burn.
Damn.
All that to say, what do you think about Gemini Man? What do you agree with? What is your pumps of butter rating?
I agree with the commentator's opinion about like the just general darkness of the movie. There were a lot of evening shots, the shots in the catacombs, and just like there was very little in which this movie took place during the day. And so watching these movies, I feel like you really need like a bigger screen and like a dim lit room, which is not how I watched it. I watched it just on my computer laying in bed because I was so tired. And so I just saw my like face reflection staring back at me the whole time. But then I was like, that's kind of meta because I'm watching this like Gemini movie.
It's like you're a mirror.
Oh.
That. Full circle.
Yes, very full circle. But for me, it was really great to see Will back in this really action role, because that was kind of one of our biggest bones about Suicide Squad and even Bright, was that he didn't do a lot of running. Like, he had actions with like weapons and stuff, but I feel like I haven't seen Will this active since Hancock, maybe, or I Am Legend, perhaps, in terms of just like the physical stunt work and stuff. So that was really great to see. And I actually didn't think that the dialogue was all that clunky. So that being said, I didn't like walk away being like, wow, that was a fantastic action movie, but I didn't walk away being like, that was a waste of time. So for that, I would give this movie a half a pump butter more than Little Raj. I would give this 2.5 pumps.
Well, we're on the same page.
Oh, I am.
I too am in the 2.5 pump club. I watched this and like seeing the younger him initially, I was like, oh my God, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
It just was spotty. Like, there were some scenes where it's like really good. Then there were some scenes where it's like, this looks like a video game. And then there's the end scene. To me, it looked like they completely changed him. Like, he didn't really look like Will as much at the end, in my opinion. But so I think that's a challenge you put on the viewer with doing something like this, is that, you know, throughout the movie, you're kind of going to be trying to like analyze and suspend your disbelief and all this stuff. And especially it's someone like Will, who like and not to say, because like with the Irishman, like obviously we know what a young Al Pacino or young Robert De Niro kind of looks like, but like with Will, I would like, we've talked about this, like we've grown up and relive and nostalgia and enjoy him as this kind of era of him with the Fresh Prince so much. Like, it's hard to like, I think we, in our minds, probably when you think of Will Smith, you think of Fresh Prince Will Smith, and then like you remember like, oh shit, yeah, he's like 50 now, like, yeah, and you see him currently in something. But so all that to say that that's a lot of work to put on the audience in some senses of like trying to grapple with like, okay, that's not really him that young, but like kind of looks like him that whole journey. And my biggest gripe probably really is not so much like, I think the plot is really simple. Yeah, and I don't think that's bad, but I think the way it was shot to me isn't as intriguing as it could have been. Like, I love a good like spy action thriller, like the Bourne movies is like what I think of when I think about that. And those movies, to me, when I think of them, they have like such a mood and such a visual language, you know? You have that kind of enemy of the state blue, tech thriller blue. You're in Europe, so you like, I think of like the European sirens all the time, you know, chasing after him, and just the architecture and all that stuff. And I mean, there were some beautiful locations in this movie, but I just feel like it didn't feel that serious like that, you know, like so in that terms, like I feel like if it was shot in a like more urban city or something, like maybe that would have like heightened it a little bit for me. But yeah. And besides Clive Owen, I kind of wonder like if there were like I actually liked the girl who played like kind of his girl Friday, so to speak. I thought it was a good change from the typical like sexy. I guess we'll talk about that when we get to cast. But I don't know, maybe if there were like a few more nuggets of like other big stars or like villains or something, but
Yeah.
those are my it's where the pumps get taken.
I see what you mean. And I kind of agree with you in that this movie felt a lot like a Mission Impossible Bourne Identity mix. And I liked a lot of the settings and scenery from this movie. They had some like really bright, beautiful buildings from like Budapest. And then they had like, I love a good catacomb scene that reminds me very much of some kind of like Indiana Jones shit. But again, it was just so dark that I was like, I can't see, but I just like, they were like choking each other out with like bones and shit. Like I thought that was really fun. So it read very similar to like a Bourne movie. And I kind of appreciated that even though you take kind of a complicated concept like cloning and just made it into a fairly easy plot to kind of just like tune out and follow along, I think was good.
Yeah. It too reminds me, I haven't seen Taken, but like, you know, Will's at this age where it's like this old man trying to leave this career life he's made and or like, you know, fighting against something. And so I always think it's interesting that men do some of these kinds of... And he talked about that in his vlog, so we'll probably talk that next. What do you think of the trailer for Gemini Man?
I remember, gosh, maybe I saw the trailer for Gemini Man that summer. I'm sure... I can't like pinpoint what movie that I saw, but I remember seeing the trailer in the theater, and it had, you know, it starts off with some great action sequences, and then, you know, 30 seconds into the trailer, you get the reveal in, I think it's the catacomb scene where you see younger Will looking back at older Will, and I was like, oh shit. And I remember when I saw the trailer for the first time, I almost thought it wasn't CGI. I thought they found an actor that looked really close to Will. And I knew it wasn't Jaden, but I was like, whoa, that casting's really cool. And someone was like, yeah, no, that's like the CGI'd Will Smith. I was like, oh, okay. But it, you know, this totally is this era of like CGI face grafting. They did it with Mark Hamill in the Star Wars movies. They did it with Paul Walker in the Fast and Furious movies and stuff. And obviously, like, Will had a younger counterpart playing like the back of his head or his like younger stunt double or whatever. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I digress. The trailer is great. You know, it kind of gives out what the movie's going to be, but it doesn't give away that like second little twist that we get at the end of the movie, which that took me by surprise and got me really excited.
That's like
that there was a third clone or a second clone. There was a third Will Smith that I was like, what the fuck?
I mean, foolish of you to, you know, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. Like,
can't get fooled again.
Foolish of him to think that they only could make one or only stopped at one. But yeah, the trailer, I think, is pretty straightforward. I think it banks on, you know, this younger, older premise and technology of like enticing, like, oh, that's different and new, and oh, that looks interesting. But I think people are so critical nowadays with like trailers and teasers and hearing about new projects sometimes that like, I don't know how enticing I don't think it was that enticing if we look at the numbers. So
yeah, I
mean, that didn't work to its advantage. But I wish it didn't reveal so much. Like the moto scene is like a highlight, and the fact that it's in the trailer is kind of sucky. And the reveal too. I mean, you know, you could just have like those shots where it's like, is that, he kind of looks like Will, and then wait to in the movie to actually be like, oh, like they made a younger Will Smith, or like oh, they found somebody who looked like him. But let's talk about the cast. Not too many people, because, you know, just pay Will Smith twice and but we have Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Danny Zacharuski. She's like the sidekick, kind of Julie of sorts from Bad Boys. Like, wearing some shit, you you gotta come along with type character. And like I started to say earlier, at first I was like, really, her? And she reminds me of like all these, I feel like this is like a new-ish kind of girl we're seeing a lot in TV and media. She reminds me of the chick from Hacks who plays the like comedy writer kind of sidekick. And then she reminded me of someone else, but I'm blanking on who it is. But then I was watching, because initially I was like, I mean, very pretty girl, but like, you know, sometimes in these movies, it's clearly like, okay, some hot chick is like, you know, love interest type. And then I was like, no, they're breaking that, and you should be happy for that. And she's doing a lot more than some pretty chick who he would just sleep with or something is doing. And so, amen to that. I like this. We're gonna deprogram our brains, and we're on board for this. So I was like, okay.
When her character was first revealed as like the new manager of the boat dock office or whatever, at first I was like, okay, if she really is just that, and then she's gonna be all of a sudden like wielding guns and whatever, like following Wills, like that's gonna be some bullshit. But I kind of liked that she is a secret agent in the DIA and was sent there to follow Will or Henry and to you know, like kind of watch him and monitor him and stuff. She's really clever. Her action sequences are great. She can hold a gun and shoot a gun really well. She can fight and like take some hits as well. She's been in a bunch of stuff. She was in 10 Cloverfield Lane, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. She was in 6 Degrees of Margot Robbie. She was in Birds of Prey, a Quentin Tarantino movie, Death Proof, one of my all-time favorites, Sky High. But
I didn't recognize her.
She looks a little bit older in this movie, and she was born in 84, so she's a little bit older than us, but looks fairly young. I loved her hair in this movie. I love a woman that can rock like a really fun, short, boyish bob.
Yeah. And that's like what I mean by like kind of like we're getting a lot of that type of woman and stuff lately, I feel like. That because like the girl in Hacks, I think, and that could be like representation too, like because the girl in Hacks is gay, and so she's a little bit more masculine, but not super like butch or anything, but like she's a little bit more androgynous maybe, or just like maybe non-binary. So like I feel like that kind of look of like it can like work either way sort of thing, like kind of tomboyish but still kind of girly, is just like obviously being seen more because of representation. So I don't mean that negatively, but yeah, now that I'm looking through, I should IMDb deep dived after I watched this, but now that I'm looking through her stuff, I'm really impressed by how much she's able to like transform and change. Like she doesn't look like how she looked in other stuff and previously. So good for her. She's reminding me of the chick who played Velma. See, I never know her name. Linda Cardellini.
Yes.
Yeah, her. And yeah. But yes, like, you know, it's like once you see her or you like see her stuff, you're like, yeah, I like, but you're like, that's the same person, or like she's just so good at like being a chameleon. So good for you, Mary Winstead, sorry. Anything else on her or her character?
Well, at first I didn't appreciate their age gap because I really did think that they were going to like fall in love, and I similar to you was like, oh great, this isn't going to be like a typical love story. There was some like flirting and, you know, but I didn't,
because he takes her on a date, and I was like, that's where I was just like, really?
Yeah. And then I thought, oh my god, no, she's gonna fall in love with the young Will because maybe they're matched for age, but it seemed like she was supposed to be slightly older, like maybe in her 30s or something. So I kind of appreciate that, like, although there was like some chemistry, that they didn't really rely on that like romantic element. Plus I really didn't, Will's had better co-stars that he's had better chemistry with, so I didn't really like feel their chemistry much at all. But maybe just rather their bond over their job.
Yeah. And I think she like winds up in that role that maybe is typically for like a young man of like the next generation within like the agency who winds up kind of knowing their shit and helping him out in some cases and like actually being like the one like that dude looked like you and doing a DNA test and being like,
Yeah.
yo,
You didn't know,
that
like,
is you,
yeah,
but
you-
younger.
Yeah, she really does kind of like move the plot along. She's like, did you like look at him? Did you notice anything about him? And
And I
so,
love
she's
like
smart.
where she's like, is there any way you could have like a secret child you don't know about? And he's just like, no, absolutely not. Which kind of makes me question, like, I mean, does that mean he was celibate the whole time?
I
Like
think
kind of
so.
like an Agent J Men in Black situation where it's just like you can't probably emotionally handle having like a personal life. So yeah.
I think so because at the end when he was like calling out Junior, when Henry was calling out Junior and he's like, you're afraid of bees and blah 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 blah. He's like, saying all these things that he knows like about himself, and he's like, you're probably around 23, you're a virgin because you're afraid to get close to anybody because that means that they're gonna be like, they're gonna know the real you or whatever. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure that so is this like 51-year-old version of Henry is most likely has been celibate this whole time because of his like fear of having a connection with someone outside of his job.
Well, Henry didn't have to call us out like jeez. Next we have Clive Owen as Clay Varys, the villain of sorts. He is
Yes.
the one who is kind of the head of the Gemini project and also kind of like a surrogate father figure to Junior because of that. What did you think of his performance?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Do you think Clive Owen's hot?
No, not hot. I think he's like very suave and gentlemanly looking, so like that can be attractive, but like I don't look at him and go like, woo, I got a PQ, which I just learned from Bling Empire, which is like quiver.
That's politely going boy yo 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 yo.
Yeah.
PQ is slang for boy yo yo. Oh my god, that's so funny. I think Clive Owen in like some of his roles has been like pretty hot. This one I didn't really think so, but he's like not an unattractive man by any means.
Yeah.
And
Why'd you ask that though? Hold on. Answer your question.
I don't know. I'm just curious because I kind of wanted him to be a hot villain. He has it in him to be a hot villain. But what I did really like about him is that he's done this before where he's been kind of like villain or mean or manipulative. He plays that role really well. He's a really good deceptive asshole. He like lies to both Junior and to Henry. He's manipulative. He's narcissistic. Like he answers every question so perfectly with like a curated response. Like he's very clever and crafted in how he like twists the words around to kind of like get what he wants to like pit the two Henrys or Wills against each other. So I think he played that villain really well, but he didn't outwardly seem evil. He seems very like friendly and fatherly, but like you're like, but you're an asshole. You're like turning these people against each other. You're like you genetically modified this person, raised a boy from birth, essentially, lied to him by saying he was an orphan, that his parents dropped him off at a fire station or something like that, and they've like mentally fucked with his head so bad. Poor little Junior's gonna have years of therapy to get over this.
Yes, all the therapy that Senior skipped.
Indeed.
Yeah, I liked him in this role. It to me in a way, and I think this might be where I was coming from. Like, I wish there was like a little bit more like star power in this movie. Is that the movie in some aspects a little bit, even though $135 million budget and I know the CGI, in some ways it feels a little cheap. So like having him, it feels like someone else could have played this role, like, also, but, like, I don't know. Like, I just wish there was maybe more to support his star power as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know where I'm going.
No, I agree, because Douglas Hodge and Ralph Brown, who kind of play the other people within the organization that you don't know are like either good people or bad people, question mark, or just people who have done enough to like skate by and not get in trouble with their bad deeds. Like those people are unrecognizable to me. I looked at their IMDb page. I was like, I've never seen any of their stuff.
Maybe it's because, like, I feel like, to me, for Clive Owen, maybe this is like a phone call that it's like, hey, Aang and Will are doing this movie, Gemini, you want to play the villain? And it's just like, I'm not doing anything. I'll take a job. And it doesn't seem like the kind of role, like, for me, I really understand why Will did this, which we'll get to, but like it doesn't seem like it's like that model quote, you know, I don't wake up for anything less. That like why would he want to wake up for this role, in a sense? Like it's not that meaty to me for him to be in this in that way. But good for him. I don't know. Moving on to Benedict Wong, who plays Baron. I think Odie's description of him was really great because he is like the fun, jovial, like comfort, breath of fresh air kind of friend. So I really enjoyed once we saw him and stuff. So and I loved when they're staying at his house and Will's character wakes him up and he's like, "You're the worst house guest." Like just those small moments. But yeah, I really liked his character.
Yeah, he's a great actor. He's more recently kind of known for his role in Doctor Strange. And I totally agree with you. The writer, Odie, nailed it, that he just plays like the best man. He dies in this movie, and I really didn't want him to die. That was kind of a bummer. I think it would have been fun to have this like remember from season 1 how all we wanted with J-Lo was like to get the heist and have like a bikini on the beach moment. I wanted that so bad for like him and Henry at the end to like live it up in a little
retire together.
Yeah, retire together on like either like a fishing dock, and they have like a nice like mansion, whether they go back to Georgia or like hang out in Budapest. And what like Baron seemed like he has a state in many different places. At the end, Henry says he scattered his ashes in the Caribbean. I'm like, how come he can live and we could have had these just like two fun old men like just be chilling in the Caribbean? I would have loved that.
Yeah, that would have been nice. R.I.P. Bear.
Yeah.
Anyone else? You briefly mentioned the guys who plays, or the characters Jack and Dell, played by Douglas Ralph.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just like extra agents.
Truly. And just one last big shout out to Victor Hugo, who plays the on-set reference for Junior. So he was there. Yes. Like we'll talk about obviously like the making of Gemini Man, but Will did work overtime in these two roles and had the face mapping CGI tracking for the tweaking, but Junior or Victor Hugo was often on set to be like the reference person and also doing some of that stunt work and like back of the head acting.
Yeah, and he's a very attractive young man.
Sure is, a little Brazilian baby.
I hope he gets more work. And let's talk about the man of the hour, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Or men of the hour, Will Smith as Junior. And so maybe we should talk about them separately. So who should we talk about first, Junior or Henry?
Junior.
Okay. Will Smith as Junior. Go.
Well, I think we both noted that this was giving us 6 degrees of separation. Clean shaven, short hair,
kind of high top fade.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved both outfits that Junior and Henry wore throughout the movie, and that they were just kind of like simple CIA outfits. But I think that just like simple, like dark zip up jacket and like black pants just work really well too. It's like a simplistic combat outfit.
Part of me, I'm going to talk about Henry, but part of me wishes that like I don't know. Like, so it's weird because in interviews, Will doesn't have the like gray he has in this movie. So like he was on Trevor Noah and I was like, he looks amazing. Like I thought they aged him really well apparently because I was like, damn, he really is getting up there. Like you could finally kind of see it. I feel like in this movie, and like a couple movies ago, like Suicide Squad, he's in amazing shape and like still like kicking ass and taking names. So like part of me, and I think that's like what's hard to get rid of too, is that we've watched so many movies of him in kind of similar roles and situations, or like, you know, elements of people. So like seeing someone like Deadshot, who is a great shot as well, and a killer for hire and stuff, and then seeing this character, like I feel like it was too much Will in a weird way. Whereas like Deadshot was very much a character, and then but maybe like the balance of Junior helps that. But I was just like, this is just like old man Will Smith, like Danny Glovering it. I'm getting too old for this shit. I'm retiring, and like he can't get out. But anyways, back to Junior. His outfits, yeah, were nice. I was going to say that because like I felt like he had on old man clothes.
Sure,
like.
He's very LLB like, and Kirkland brand.
Yes. Like the button up with like the army green shirt and some cargos and stuff, which is fine. But I don't know, for not that like world trained assassins are like wearing like Gucci suits or anything, but I kind of wish he was like the older him was as tactical looking as Junior was, you know, but maybe just in a different like aged way. But I guess that is it. Is like, I'm getting too old for this shit. I'm not wearing vests and like all this stuff, like
all these extra accessories,
button up and shoot, like.
But like the acting of Junior was, I think, pretty good, especially when they're kind of like interrogating each other once they first officially like get to meet and talk with each other, even though tensions are very high because they're both like, I'm ready to kill you at any moment, but I don't want to because like there's something in me that tells me that I shouldn't, kind of thing. You can see this like mental shift in Junior as he realizes, oh shit, I can trust Henry. I am Henry, and I shouldn't be trusting Clay, my other, but like I've spent all of my life with Clay, and he's my surrogate father and the person who like raised me, and definitely feeling those like complicated daddy issues of like wanting to please and follow directions and feeling like, okay, he trusted me with this like big assassin job, and this is the one that he's like, dad's gonna make me like feel super proud about me. So I thought that he played that like kind of young kid with a lot to prove well.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, like the scene where he, after he first tries to kill Henry, he goes back and Clay is like fixing him up, kind of. That's when I was like, oh my God, it's like 6 degrees of separation, Will, because it reminded me of when he was at the apartment and like got stabbed and they were helping him, and after hearing and watching interviews where Will talks about Aang and how like when they met he had like this room with all this like with screens of like different footage from him from different movies and stuff, like I'm like, oh, that's why like they really kind of did their homework on like his previous work, and then seeing how they tried to animate or use younger versions of him to like mimic stuff from movies like that and Bad Boys. I was like, oh, okay, like I'm not tripping, like it's kind of intentional. And then too, like the way he spoke as Junior, you could definitely tell there was like an effort there to give him like a different voice and kind of softer, definitely more naive, surprisingly gentle for like some young hotshot killer, you know, who's been trained his whole like life almost to become that. And he sounded really vulnerable as Junior too, like, so
yes,
I thought that was really a standout part of his performance.
And had some good tears, you know, crying with when he goes back to Clay at the end, and Clay's like, I don't understand why it's so hard for you to kill this man. And then he's just like, answer these questions for me, Papa. Like, is my life a lie? And,
Daddy issues.
But he cries, and we've been talking about this pattern of emotional movies for Will. We talked about those thick ass tears in Collateral Beauty, and now it wasn't so much like that. But I wonder if that was, obviously it was Will with the CGI mapping tears, but were the tears CGI'd too? That's what I kind of want to know. Like, obviously we can fake cry. There's actors that can just make themselves cry on demand. There's actors that like put the drops in their eyes, and then
CGI tears is next level.
That is some next level, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me if like the real Will was crying, but then they still had to like facial map it to make his face look younger, and then had to like blur the tears and then add in something that like matches the younger face.
I think in this case, it's probably that, because just seeing how they like filmed his face and stuff, and the reference stuff they shot with him, like I can definitely see him. I don't think he held back acting wise. And two, a big part of that crying scene is like obviously Collateral Beauty. We talked about those crying scenes and tears and stuff, and after seeing his like interviews like on Trevor Noah and stuff, like him talking about like having to watch like his old stuff and then like the actor he's become, like to me at least, I was like, oh, that's like Will's like growth as an actor. Like 6 Degrees of Separation, Will couldn't have had those tears. Like that's post Collateral Beauty.
Agreed.
Like all this work and depth as a actor and as a man to get there emotionally. Like that is the payoff of being able to kind of reverse age someone, is that you have all that skill, but yet you also have like the beauty of them being younger as well, like of being able to tap into that. Whereas I'm not going to say that there's not younger actors who can do that. There definitely are. Hell, there's some kid actors that you're like, they're absolutely too young to be that good at that.
Yes.
But yeah, like I thought at least those tears were real, and it's just the expertise of Will at this point being able to pull that off.
I absolutely agree with you that 6 Degrees Will could not pull off what 51 Will can and has. Like he is a man who has worked so hard on his craft over the years.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not to say either, I think, because like hearing how he talked about Ang Lee, like pulling up footage of him, and he's like, his face is like, I'm assuming on a screen, and he's like at the screen like, look, like how you do this with your eyebrow, or like this like little wrinkle in your face, like, oh, I love this is so beautiful. And then seeing how like they animated his face and made Junior and stuff, it made me think of like, I mean, even just doing stuff for the podcast, like I feel so familiar with Will's face and like, his changes as he's gotten older and stuff, and his features. But like if you do a portrait of someone too, like obviously you're studying their features because that's what makes them them, and able to differentiate from me and you and stuff. And so for them to be that detailed was really like kind of artsy nerdy to me of like them really honing in on like them talking about, Will has really expressive eyebrows and we had to get those right, or like his mouth is also like a really unique feature of him. Hell, his ears, like Junior's ears were a spot on. I'm sure Victor Hugo's ears are not on par with Will Smith's ears. So like I don't know how I got here, but but yeah, like those details and attention to that stuff, I feel like really paid off. Oh, I got here because I was saying that in some ways, I think it was also hard for Will to kind of dumb down a bit himself to be as like soft and vulnerable and naive as Junior is.
Right. To put him back in that like 6 Degrees perspective of being younger and naive. It's a lot of mental trips going on.
Well, because then you think like, Like he joked, like, I got to watch all my like entertainment mistakes or like,
Yes.
not so great stuff. And I'm sure all actors appreciate like their early work, but at the same time, like the work you've put in and how much better you've become. And so sometimes for someone to be like, oh, I really loved your earlier stuff more or something like that, like is a bit of a gut punch because you're like, I mean, that's great. But like, I also like, I've been doing some cool shit now too. Like, so I'm sure in some weird ways it was weird for him. Like, you want me to act like that? Like, that wasn't that great. Or like when people rewatch stuff and they're like, oh, I wish I made some different choices in that character or in like how I portrayed that. And like, I think I've seen Adam Brody say that about Seth Cohen. And I'm just like, why? Like, that role made you. Like, so obviously you did something right. But they've grown as men and people, and so they can see like things that they're like, oh man, that's so stupid of me or something, but it was just true for that time. So the mental gymnastics of trying to, I couldn't play younger. I don't even know. Who is she?
Oof, you couldn't pay me money to go back and be younger me.
Not even $135 million.
Yeah, okay, maybe for 135 mil. But I think, I loved the conversations that Henry had with Junior. Now we can kind of transition over to our notes on Will Smith as older Henry, or age appropriate Will Smith, I guess. But I thought the dialogue at the end when they like go visit him at university was a little cheesy, and he was just like, hey, I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. And Henry was like, well, there's nothing wrong. Like, I want to make some of those mistakes too, because that's like how you learn or whatever. So I did kind of appreciate that, and that they didn't try and like pass it off as like a father-son thing. I thought that like at the end of the movie, Henry was going to like adopt Junior and like take him to Georgia to his little boathouse and just kind of like raise him like a son. I'm like, I think that would be weird. I would not want to raise a clone of myself. Could you imagine, Bria, if this movie was a crossover of iRobot, and instead of all of the Mark Zuckerberg looking CGI robots, that they just made a colony of little Wills? That would be trippy.
That's, you just burn it all down. Like, what do you do?
I feel like this movie would have gotten a lot more flack if that was the case, because it'd be like, okay, narcissist, like you made a movie where you cloned yourself hundreds of times. Anyways, but like I said, it was nice. I think the action sequences were great. I liked too, this is a kind of a weird note, that their injuries were healing in real time versus sometimes in movie magic, like someone will go through like this crazy, fight where they get burnt or cut or shot at or stabbed, and then the next day it's like perfectly fine and their skin's normal. I liked how the progression of the days that like their injuries are still there and prevalent. Older Henry got his ass kicked in this movie, and I was like, geez Louise, like some of the fighting was really intense, that I was really surprised that he could get up so many times.
His back definitely was hurting.
Woo, for sure. But he got pistol whipped in the face with a motorcycle. I had to go back and watch that a few times. That scene was really good.
That scene was like crazy. I will say though that like Junior's or Will's stunt double, I feel like was a few shades darker than him, and so like that was like, I was just like, oh yeah, that's not really him. I think there are parts that are him. There definitely are parts on rigs and stuff like that, but that suspended a bit of that magic for me a little bit. But that when he like went directly at him like Willie style, and like not Big Willie style. Oh, yeah.
Big wheelie style.
Little Willie style. It's little Willie style because it's Junior, but he went at him with like the motorcycle like up on one wheel, and Will's against Henry is against the cop car, and I'm just like, oh my god, move. Like, yes, that scene was good tension and like a good build up of like all of that coming to a head, especially since like this movie is like basically him kind of trying to figure out why they're coming after him and going around the world. And so he escapes to Baron's place and wakes up like on red alert, and he's like, there's a sniper, you guys, you know, go hide. And he's like going through the city and essentially shooting at himself, but shooting at Junior and stuff. And Junior's on the roofs of buildings and all these things, so they don't really see each other. But for them at some point get on motorcycles and be chasing each other around.
Yeah.
Like, it was a nice, like, that slow buildup of them playing cat and mouse, like, on these buildings and in these buildings, and then finally, like, a chase kind of scene. And usually, you know, maybe you hop off a motorcycle and it like slams and like explodes into something, but like to go at him, like use the motorcycle like a weapon, was like straight up like savage. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
And then Henry, I feel like I like when he was like, you know, this is man meat.
That was funny.
Those are things that where I'm like, this is just Will. I felt like there could have been a little more characterization. Like, not so much, I don't want to keep going back to Deadshot, but even like I wrote in my notes, like even Independence Day Will, like he, like that military haircut, that mustache, like, you know, something about him that was just a little different. And even the way he spoke, the way he spoke really was very Will-like to me. And I think that was a bit of the problem. And I know he's like a pro at improving and not so much like always just doing straight off script. But I don't know if he improved in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but I kind of wished that Henry had his own language in this movie, some senses. Because like the man meat thing, I was like, and then once I watched the Trevor Noah interview, I was like, yeah, that's definitely like just Will, big Will, because he talks about like youth and stuff, like in comparison to like having sex for the first time and how you walk a little differently. And I thought that was funny, that's the way he thought about this a little bit. Yeah. And there's a little more obvious swagger and stuff, and you can see that in the characterization of Junior. He's a little stiffer and like a little more rigid and definitely by the book, I guess. And Henry's looser and well seasoned, I guess you could say. Oh, not a Will note, but in one of my early notes, so after he retires and he is this like, does his house get like they try to get him at his house? Yeah, they don't set it on fire, but they're like on the roof and attacking him. They might have shot out a few windows. Like his little escape plan, and then he just like pew, pew, like was dropping them like flies, which to me was like, clearly you're stupid because this man killed a man on a moving train. Truly. And you think you can just ambush his house and that he's not going to put up a fight or be a better shot than you. Like, come on. But so eventually he goes to a boat to meet a friend. And this guy is like typical, like, old bachelor millionaire yacht dude. Yeah. And he has his shirt open, and I don't know, it was just the angle, but I definitely wrote down, I was like, do we really need all of this hairy chest action like in this part of this movie? Like, because it was a little distracting. I was just like, oh, come on. And it's not even like sexy. Yeah, couldn't we shoot a little higher, a little further out? And I was watching on my iPad, so I just felt like it was like a big part of this movie. Like, I was like nose deep in chest hair. But yeah, like, I don't know. I thought the Junior role was great. I do wish there was a little more meat to Henry. I agree with Odie there, like the characterization and stuff. I wish that we got a little more of his backstory, maybe. Any other notes? I thought it was funny when they were in Budapest and they were at that little like resort hotel that they were all wearing robes for like a really long time.
And I thought that that was risky. Like, you look comfy and it looks like you're having a great time having a little rest at this hotel, but like, don't you feel very vulnerable just wearing a robe for a very long time, knowing that like there's an assassin that can come get you at any point?
He needed a massage after he got bike whipped.
Yes. I was like, why are they in robes for so long? I think it was pistol whipped by a bike.
Tire whipped.
Tire whipped. Yeah.
Tail whipped. He got tail whipped. That's
whipped.
A trick in motocross and in BMX.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I have a question. Would you, and maybe we could start asking this, because I feel like doing this, you know, like people, like you talked about a lot, like people were like, oh, so you like watched this, you watched that, or oh, so you're just like a J-Lo expert or you're a Will Smith expert now. Would you recommend Gemini Man to anybody? Like, how, if someone asked you about this movie?
I'd recommend Gemini Man over After Earth. And I don't want to be rude to note that's no disrespect to Jaden. I don't think he was like the issue of that movie. I think it was just the storytelling and world building that was the main problem. But yeah, I mean, for someone that, again, enjoys movies like Mission Impossible, Bond, Born Identity, you said another one, like Taken, yes, like an action movie like that satisfies that that itch. Yeah, for movie lovers of this genre.
I'm gonna say it. So I'm sorry, cringe, but I kind of would love J-Lo to use this technology. Like, it might not be 100% like there. It might be a little questionable and not, you know, super real. But I'm just curious what kind of movie she would do with this.
Yeah. If it would be like a similar action style movie, or like she like meets a younger, kind of like a Hilary Duff moment where it's like Hilary Duff playing the Italian version of Hilary Duff and then they sing a concert together, but it's like J-Lo meeting younger J-Lo and they have a concert together and they're like she's an older singer. People are thinking she's like on her way out and should retire, and that this like new hot girl is like all the rage, but it's actually J-Lo playing the young hot girl, and then they have to like team up to get like the old J-Lo is going to headline for the young J-Lo's like concert or whatever, but then they end up like teaming up.
I don't know. That's very Marry Me adjacent.
Yeah.
I know people are like, oh, wow, she's playing
herself,
pop star. So I'd be scared for that reason. But I think this, like, too, I never said this, even though I alluded to it, but I understand why Will wanted to do this, because he's a nerd and he is very much into technology, and I think he just enjoys pushing himself. And so like anyone who's like, oh man, this technology isn't great, blah blah blah, someone has to do something with it until it gets better. So I applaud him for taking that risk, and I think it turned out fairly decent, I'm sure.
There's been worse CGI hack jobs.
Yeah, in like 10 years, there will be movies that use this better. But
yeah, I agree.
It's a solid start. And he talked about too, I thought it was funny, which interview was it? But he joked about like, I could just make movies with my new young self. Like, I don't even have to like, you know, show up and like look decent. I'm just gonna go butt and gut and like just get a gut and a butt and like kind of let himself go and just do this for all his movies going forward, where they just make him look great. So I'm curious, just the type of movies. Like, it's so far it seems like this movie and The Irishman, the people they've used de-aging on, they're like old in the movie, or they're not old but age appropriate, like they're themselves
right
in the movie. So I would be curious. I think where I was going with J-Lo, and not that she needs to because she still looks great, but like or just somebody, is that they just make a full movie with their young self completely, no current self at all involved. Like that would, I think, the next step with this maybe.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I look forward to seeing future Will movies because he's still young in the sense that he can have a lot more. I can still see him doing this for another 20, 30 years kind of thing. Like I think about someone like Morgan Freeman, who in movies like Seven that we just did with No More Late Fees in 1995, he was already like in his 50s. Right. And then has done.
He's been old our whole lives.
He's been old our whole lives, but has like just progressively looked like slightly more older throughout the years. So like, yeah, my only reference for Morgan Freeman is playing these kind of like older, getting ready to retire or are retired bucket list kind of like,
yeah,
you know, movies. So it'll be interesting in Will's like, you know, second, or not even second wave, but like just the next wave of acting for him, how he chooses to, you know, play roles. And, you know, will we ever find a Will Smith that's going to be like, what was the movie with Jennifer Lopez that Morgan Freeman was in? Unfinished Life with Robert Redford. Yeah. You know, like something like that, where he's just like a ranch hand kind of thing. I don't know. Be interesting.
I'd be curious to see. I know we rag on Legend of Bagger Vance, but I'd be curious to see Will maybe do some more supporting roles and not so much like leading. Even Emancipation is like him.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because when I saw the trailer for it, he looks pretty, not unrecognizable, but like he looks older. He looks hardened, you know. Obviously, this is going to be like a big epic historical piece. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it's going to be. I'm really excited for that one, actually. I know it's going to be heavy, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it because I too am actually in his camp of like, I don't really need to see another slave movie unless like they do something extraordinary with like the storyline or plot that's completely like different, or we haven't seen, or they're telling someone's story that hasn't been heard. And knowing that he didn't want to do Django because he wanted it to be centered on the love story, and that he didn't want to do slave movies at all, pretty much, and that he chose to do this. I'm really interested to see why. Like, he chose to do it, like, in terms of, like, the story and how that gets told. So, all that to say, we'll keep on acting.
keep on going out there, acting. Snack and cocktail?
Ice cream.
Oh, okay.
Ice cream, drink-wise, I don't know. Maybe like a Mai Tai or something. So I'm envisioning him on your Caribbean beach. And then, oh, hey, is that Jennifer Lopez down there hanging out with her heist money?
With her, like, just bathing in money. I just want to see her in a bikini, just, like, fanning herself with money. That's all I want.
That seems so random. Ice cream and a Mai Tai. Yo. They should make, like, Mai Tai ice cream float. That sounds good.
That'd be so good. So good. I mean, if you want to go on the cold theme, you could also do, like, a pina colada. But Mai Tais are also so delicious. I love a good Mai Tai.
Just wondering, taste with ice?
I'm sure it would be delicious. A little scoop really of, like, pineapple sorbet. Well, and speaking of which, my cocktail is called the Gemini. There was like a couple of Gemini-inspired cocktails. Martha Stewart makes one, but I didn't really care for this recipe. But this one, the Gemini, is the cosmic twin of the pre-Prohibition era Clover Club cocktail, which is a handsome combination of gin, raspberry syrup, lemon, and egg white. But I'm taking the egg whites out of this because I hate when they do that shit in cocktails. So essentially, it's lemon juice, gin, and ice. And then you shake that up together and pour it over Prosecco.
Oh, that sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Sounds nice and lovely and refreshing. And for food-wise, the only food that they ate in this movie were those stale crackers that they found on the boat. But
Stale charcuterie.
I'm thinking like foods that are doubled, so foods that are twins. So I was thinking like double stuffed Oreos or like little sandwich cookies, or there's
PB&J.
Yeah, a little PB&J. There's like twice baked foods, like a twice baked potato.
Twix.
A Twix there. Kit Kat, Twix. There you go. Perfect.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and to the people who've stuck with us so far. Please come back for another episode of the Olsen Twins version or Tia and Tamara version of Inside the Actor Studio.
Sister, if you like us enough to stick around, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us as we discuss Will Smith in another animated movie next week, Spies in Disguise.
Yes, and on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I am one of your hosts, Simone. Subscribe to our Blessed Mess. Leave us a suggestion if you're into it. But an easy way to boost our ratings is just to leave a little rating on wherever you listen to us, wherever you get your podcast.
Yes, and I'm your other host, Bria, and sometimes social media badass. So wipe off those buttery ice cream ripped fingers and give us a review. Follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and listen to us on YouTube. Leave us comments on YouTube too if you listen there. Get those. It's fun to we can respond to them too sooner than later. So this has been another episode of
It's Like in a Mirror. Roll call. I'm looking at the pot in the mirror.
Oh yeah. What other songs work with this? J-Lo kind of works. After all, he's still the same girl. Same girl.
Okay, but what if? Hear me out. Henry was looking at Junior, and all of a sudden you hear, I love you, you're perfect. A manifestation of my dreams.
No, that's when Clay saw Junior. He was like, yes, it worked. That's another thing. Last but not least, maybe they should have showed the cloning stuff more.
I would have liked some more science behind it.
Like a little Frankenstein. Oh, my creation. But yeah. And a Will song that would go to this.
Yes.
I'm about to freak this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just the two of us.
Oh my God, we can make it if we try. Just the two of us. Gemini.
Just the two of us. Oh my God, that is great. Okay. We're out of here.
Bye.